Welcome to the Real Estate Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Gary Lipsky of Break of Day Capital. I talk to leading experts to discuss a wide range of subjects to educate investors on best-in-class practices to build legacy wealth and positively impact communities. Let's jump in. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Gary Lipsky with Break of Day Capital. Be sure to join our Facebook group, Asset Management Mastery, where we have a great community of thousands of like-minded individuals sharing resources and best practices. Hey everyone, we have launched the BODC Multifamily Impact Fund. Invest with a trusted operator with a track record of success. Our fund offers diversification, risk mitigation, tax benefits, and stringent acquisition criteria. If you'd like to learn more, head over to our website at breakofdaycapital.com.
Choosing the right insurance coverage for multifamily properties isn't that complicated, if you know who to talk to. At the Garzella Group, we're uniquely qualified to help you navigate the range of policy choices you have, and we're committed to saving you 30% in the process. We do intensive market research and have nationwide relationships, so we can find coverage other insurance brokers simply can't. We should talk. Go to quotenow.biz and we'll start the conversation.
Today on the podcast, we have my friend Mike Taravella. Mike is the founder of Niche Holdings, which owns over 100 million assets under management. Mike has created a third-party asset management consulting practice that helps clients optimize their portfolio's value. Mike was a licensed CPA and helped Dan Gilbert's family office launch and manage several startups from scratch. Well, Mike, thanks for joining us. Can you tell the listeners more about yourself and what you do?
Yeah. Appreciate you as always, Gary, and all the value you add to everyone else. And I think you set the standard for asset management and multifamily. So one of the good guys. So appreciate you as always. But yeah, I started off doing accounting, the fun, sexy side of every business world of just, I knew I wanted to do business, but I wanted to understand like the numbers, or as my high school teachers called me, a sellout for doing accounting instead of majoring in math. And so we started a screen printing business in college. So that made me excited of just taking nothing, like just an idea and creating it. So I did, followed that up with a mixture of public accounting experience, especially in audit, and just took that systemic and realized like a lot of these big companies don't have systems. And so my whole approach in my career is how do we do this better, more efficient, or with overseas talent? At EY, the big question everyone's having was how do we have these virtual teams do it for cheap? And I believed in real estate, and so invested in 2 single-family houses. Realized I was a terrible property manager, and now we're buying multifamily assets across the country because we do. I think the big thing we do, and I'm sure you do as well, is we measure the same thing every week, every month, every quarter to find discrepancies and ask good questions. And just are very candid and honest with investors of what's happening. Because as you know, there's been a lot of news stories that does not reflect positively on multifamily, but they're good operators like you and I that are honest, candid, and grinding through to get the right answers and make the property perform again.
I love it. Yeah, not enough people are doing the work of good asset management and talking about it too. Obviously, we've spoken about this before. Gurus teach you how to get your first deal, and it's like, all right, slap it on your butt, you're good to go. And now we're a lot of investors are paying the price for that.
Yeah, I don't think this is also the one time like in accounting, if you ask most indicators cash versus accrual accounting, there'd be a crazy divide of like, knowing and not knowing very quickly. And I think just that alone has been outrageous in the amount of frauds and just uncoverings we've seen is that alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone is talking about AI to enhance their business. How are you using AI to enhance your business?
Yeah, so we take it, a lot of it is financial reviews. So a good financial review, I would say, takes 4 to 6 hours. And if you have more than 2 properties, you're like, this sucks. So our goal is to, we're probably launching February, to the public, but we're internally creating an AI financial review so to kind of double check our work, but more importantly, making sure our team and AI have the same answers. And so with that, it's calling out per unit variance, like high per unit costs, month to month variances, identifying ways to improve. And a lot of our job is just a lot of reporting. And so it's taking our weekly documents, summarizing it to owners. And then we're also using it for strategy of like ideas, creative ideas for leasing and lease up, because we all know a lot of supplies come online. So how do we rectify that so we can still maintain occupancy and get people in paying? So a lot of people that who are new to it, I think it's just like the approach that we take is what is our biggest problem as a team, and have AI do it. It'll leave you brain damaged at times, but it'll be rewarding to get the final answer correct. And if you have that approach and work for it for 2 to 3 months, you get better at prompting, getting better answers, and just like helping save time in the long run, which is what I love to do, and just help our team embody that. So even if you're not using AI, it's still so in the infancy that you have time to implement it.
And there's so many different AI tools. What are which tools are you using for AI?
Yeah, so I've stuck to like ChatGPT as a great starting point. We use it for our marketing. Um, that one we just have so much repository for marketing. Like we analyze our YouTube videos for retention and the transcript and the description. Um, and then our team has adopted Claude for projects, meaning like the financial reviews. And because it's ChatGPT is good, but for recurring projects, I think Claude is better because you can create a knowledge base, have it look up, and it can like be very specific for those projects. But as long as you're using something, you're in the top 1%, because the tools will change, the ways you prompt and ask it questions, and treating it as if it's a new employee is the best way to do it. I mean, I've used it for like life coaching too, or like my goal setting, and just whatever your biggest problem as a human is, AI is there to assist you with it. And it's much smarter than it, and easier and cheaper than any guru you can afford.
So good, excellent advice. So if someone hires you, and talk about that process. What are the reports that you provide them? How often do you provide them? What have been even maybe some of your struggles by taking on someone that may be, probably, I assume, underperforming because of the lack of asset management.
Yeah, so I think I mean 2024 was a tough year because we came off like two frauds and I had the ego of like, no matter who's on site or what's going on, we can fix it. And so we're only as good as our boots on the ground, meaning property management. So if property management lies to me, yes, there are ways to catch it, but I'm relying on this person when it comes to CapEx or these issues. So a lot of the times being remote in Nashville, what some problems can be is a property manager says it's done. I ask for a photo, and then months later, owner goes on site and goes, "Hey, what the heck? This isn't done." And it's like, well, the manager on this date said these things that said it was done. And so on the reporting side, we do our weekly pulse document that measures physical, economic, delinquency, and guest cards and applications. Because if the hurdles that we do is you got to get people in, get people paying, and then you can optimize the T12. And as we all know, occupancy and leasing has been a huge point in the last year just due to supply. And so we're looking at those things every single week to find those discrepancies. And then to hold the property manager accountable monthly, we're doing financial reviews, but we also do net promoter score reviews. And those are on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely would you refer a friend or colleague to live here? Would you renew your lease? Why or why not? And that way we're keeping the managers in check, because as we all know, nobody likes price increases, but there are trends in the property that we found by not being there. Like one of our properties had like a fire alarm that would keep going off on the third floor, and we could pinpoint that without and a manager never told us, but these surveys uncovered it. So those are like the big things we do quarterly, monthly, and weekly, because our job is to find the pattern that is broken and then fix leasing pricing. We do check our comps every week, and we check our marketing audits every week as well, to make sure everyone's doing what they say they're going to do.
Yes, which is a big, hit or miss. So let's dive in a little bit more on the net promoter scores, because so are you you're emailing it to every single resident?
Yeah, we have a Google form that we own, and we send it to the manager with kind of a prompt. And so then the survey results go to us, because I love our managers, but if they own it, things can be, as an auditor, things can be skewed and manipulated. So we want to own that. And we're not like 75 is the level of world-class like customer service, like an Apple. Our goal is to always be trending up and improving. Sometimes we get recommendations for the property like, hey, can we add more exterior lighting? We also get, hey, can we put a rooftop pool? So there's like a spectrum, but I think overall we want to make sure for our residents that, hey, this is your home, this is your community. We want to make those changes that see fit. Like sometimes there's people, the most common is, hey, I had this leaky toilet, but there's nothing getting done about it. But then we check the work orders and they haven't. So then that allows our managers to teach them how to do the portal and systems and everything. So it's a lot of boringness and simple things, but that's at the end of the day, we want to make sure our residents are taken care of.
Absolutely. And to clarify, you send it out, you said weekly, monthly, quarterly, like how often?
Oh,
and
I'm sorry,
what
monthly.
Kind of
we do it every month
right.
for the net
And the
promoter
response
score.
rate, what's the typical response rate?
It's not high. I'd say probably 10-ish%. We're trying to incentivize more. We offer like a raffle for $25 credit. A lot of the times no one answers and it's great. But then when there's problems, they'll let you know. And I think it also does better that it's not from the like in terms of like, it doesn't have the property management logos on it. It's just a Google form, name of the property. And I will say people will let you know when you're doing poorly.
Yeah. Property management is kind of a thankless job. Like most of the time you'll only hear about the complaints, but it's worthwhile to survey and to build those relationships and whatnot.
Well, and I think too, you like from a property manager standpoint, I never come in guns blazing like, you did this wrong. I'm like, hey, resident said this. Can you add more color? I look for trends though of like, hey, work orders and maintenance is taking longer. Like, I always come in with curiosity of like, how can we improve on this? Because I know we're going to send this every month, and we follow up if we don't get results right after. So it's usually the first week of the month we're sending it. By the second, third week, we're documenting to see if people are answering. And so it's just a rhythm. And that's why we're very systemized with it. So it's like, okay, mid-month financials are done. Let's look at net promoter scores. And it's another way to find out what's really happening. I think an audit, it's an independent parties telling you, not a property manager, because the property manager, unfortunately, is incentivized to do as little work on this property as possible because they're getting that income. And our job as asset managers is to catch the things that aren't working and serve our residents because they will in turn serve us back.
I appreciate you said that you're asking questions. I mean, that's a really good sign of a manager, and that's going to win over your staff because you're in it together. It's not, coming in blazing with guns blazing. You're going to turn off your staff. They're not going to work hard for you. They're going to leave. You're going to have turnover. It's just a very negative downward cycle. And you're coming in trying to understand what's going on, because usually there's like anything, there's always two sides to a story. So let's try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, well, I think it's super easy when rents go up 20% when people with podcasts say, "I manage the manager." And you're like, "Well, rents aren't up 20%, but your investors are expecting something." So, it's always a how can we do this together? And I think managers and owners see our approach, uh, and we come in and get our hands dirty. Like I even laugh when contractors are like, "Oh, is this guy going to ruin his white shoes to go in units?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not here to just look at spreadsheets. We'll get our hands dirty and go in units. Even our team members are virtual. We're secret shopping stuff." Um, One of my favorite things to tell people is like, if you as an LP or a GP are concerned about how things are going, send an Uber Eats order and tell the Uber driver, keep the food. I just want pictures of the property. Like, there's a lot of ways you can hold everyone accountable. I think there's just a lot of people like it's work at the end of the day. And if you're not willing to do it, let me or Gary do it so that we can just assist you and your team and take over the world together.
I love the Uber Eats. Food, just take pictures.
Yeah. Well, it's cheaper than a flight. And I think in our world, there's people who do badges of honor and the content stuff. But at the end of the day, if I could spend $50, hook a guy up and he's happy, he takes pictures, I get to the answer. But I think the biggest thing is, does the property manager pick up the phone? Because if they're not picking up for prospects, they're not picking up for residents, and they're definitely not going to pick up for owners.
Yeah, that's a big thing that we do. Like you mentioned, the secret shopping and making sure how quickly they respond. Do they answer the questions we actually ask them, via email or on the phone? Because some of them just give, like a very the same answer for everyone, and that's not the point. We want them to address, like, did the person ask for a two-bedroom, and then answer that question specifically, whatever it is. And the speed is so critical, because if you don't respond to a potential resident in within that first, the quicker you respond, the more better chance you're going to get to get them, because they're moving on to the next property. It's not like they're checking out one and that's it.
No, not at all. And that's how we actually find our property managers now. We don't ask people, we secret shop our competition, and whoever answers the fastest and with like that bonus question, that's the best way to do it. Because everyone, I don't know about you, Gary, but I would literally eye roll in my head when I get pitched on a software and I'm like, okay, yeah, but who cares about it? Like, I would need humans to run the business. Who's answering those calls? And so literally as part of my property management, I go on site, because if they're not willing to go on site for free, they're definitely not going to do it when you start paying them. And then like talk about how you would manage the property, not like dog the other manager or what they're doing wrong, but like what are you doing the next 90 days? And we did that in Tennessee, and 2 managers did step 1 and 1 manager did step 2. So
Sounds typical.
a lot of for those who don't know, that's a lot of PTSD from Gary from all of his years of doing this.
Absolutely. What is the biggest low hanging fruit you see when you start taking over properties for asset management, or other people doing wrong?
I think having the low hanging fruit that I see is like, people worry about the wrong things. So like I've had owners who are like, we're 60% occupied, but we got charged $300 for a legal bill. I'm like, yeah, but if we got these leased up, we're there. So I think it just like the milestones that I do, 90% occupancy, or like 92 to 94, wherever your market is, um, physical occupied. The next thing is economic occupancy. Are we above 90%? Right? If we don't have people in, we check our marketing. If we don't have people paying, we're checking our evictions and notice process. Most of our team is spending those times identifying those 2 things, and just measuring that week over week, because people go off gut, and property managers are like, oh, a 50% rent increase is huge. Like, it just, people don't systemically look at the same numbers week over week. And so they're going off gut, intuition, recency bias, and they're not being objective. And I've fallen guilty to it, but that's why I just look at the numbers every week and I go, our occupancy is good, our collections are crap. Did we file notices and evictions? I think we overcomplicate it because if you do those two things well, your only risk as an operator is you're overspending, which happens, but you got to worry about top line first. And if you do that, I think life gets much easier.
Yeah, I agree. There's plenty of levers to pull, but start there and then work your way down.
Yeah, no one's worrying about other income if you have half your occupant, like pet rents
Right.
and rubs and pest control. Like, get people paying rent.
Yep. Yep. Obviously, at least for us, 2024 was a really tough year. Higher expenses, lower income, probably negative rent growth for most properties out there. What was one of your biggest struggles, and how were you able to overcome it?
Yeah, I think one of our biggest struggles. So we just started hiring. So I would do everything, which we've all as entrepreneurs were in this boat, and we just started getting team members on board and setting that bar for teams. So we finally in the last year hired a team member from Brazil to just delegate the work. And I mean, and it's not throw the keys, let me know. It's a lot of helicopter parenting to make sure like we're seeing the same things, and we're finally getting that like leverage and trust point because like you treat this as if it's your baby. And we just had like a ton of capex issues. We had a fraudulent roofer who I followed up with every day, text call. We were 1 week away for 4 months, and then literally like the roof didn't get done, and now we've had to overcome like the most capex I've ever had to manage on a small property. Um, and so dealing with insurance and like he had a fraudulent insurance. And so it's just teaching the team how to properly follow up on top of dealing with fraudulent contractors. There's a lot of bad contractors out of there. There's some good contractors, but it's just learning how to incentivize those contractors to follow up, do those things, and managing that capex remotely was the biggest ride. Like it's the hardest thing because you're relying on someone who's boots on the ground, but just having that follow up to make and training them to take pictures and give updates. Um, I look at 24 as like I was a single mom for like 1,500 units and 3,000 contractors. It felt like, but that was what was required was to follow up with that. And the lesson from that is just like require pictures. If you're being annoying as all hell, that means you're doing your job. Um, and just ask questions. Keep asking questions because I don't know anything mechanically, but I'm just following up with like, if this isn't done by this day, how did that happen? And just, um, if I could, I would start a GC company tomorrow and just manage that because I see the real value add in that because it lowers your capex and your days delinquent or vacant, and there's just low hanging fruit there that I don't have the skill set yet to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting those turns on, and it's just, again, as always, it's finding good staff and holding them accountable, like any business. And the more accountable they are, the more attuned to your goals, the more ownership thinking, the better off, the more profitable you're going to be.
Yeah. And if they're too much, any investor, contractor, if it sounds too good to be true, it is, and run the other way. Because once they ghost you once, they're never coming back. And if they do, they're stealing more.
Yeah, absolutely. Get referrals. And you can have someone. There's almost like a 3 year maximum with any GC or like contract you have because at either they'll you use them all the time and then they get too big and they'll start going elsewhere or they get bad. But there's never like rarely is there these like 5, 10, 15 year relationships with these contractors. They just cycle in and cycle out. It's insane.
Yeah, it's like I feel like it's instead of 3 years, it's like 3 turns because then they think get like a little fat and happy and a little confident, and they're like, I could charge 10 grand. They're like, what? uh, or like the I think my favorite contractor is the one with like Jordans but with no paint on them, doing stuff. I'm like, oh gosh, this is 12 grand. I'm never getting back or on time, and um, so like follow up on insurance and referrals a ton. Even if you've done 5 turns with them, it's just double check because the managers a lot of the time are incentivized to check. Like property managers are good at the day to day. The lease up and construction is the weakest point. So if you can have a owner rep do that or someone boots on the ground to oversee those things, your life gets easier and your probability of success. So I think, continue to hire good people. And it sounds super easy, but like last 2 years, hiring people has been wild.
Concur. a lot of turnover. But if you don't have the guts to hold someone accountable and make and get rid of them, get rid of someone that's not performing well, you're going to have a heck of a lot of cleanup time and really set your property back. So hire slow, fire fast, and don't be afraid. Don't put up with subpar work because you're going to pay a price.
Oh yeah. I mean, we had a fraudulent manager send us $400,000 of invoices and then a week later goes, "Where is it?" My business partner wrote with ChatGPT wrote code to like funnel all 2,000 invoices and only 10% of those were actually our invoices. So, we say this I always say this to educate people, not to scare them. Because like with my background in accounting, Gary's a professional. We've seen crazy stuff in like the resident side, but also like the fraud side. And it's not always ill intent, but it's just our job is to be fiduciaries to our investors, and we take it very seriously.
100%. Mike, I love this conversation. Appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise. Where can listeners find out more about you and your company?
Yeah, Value Add Mike is all the handles because no one can spell my last name correctly the first time. So I figured make it as short as possible. If they want to learn more about investing, Mike at valueaddmike.com. We'll take over the world together, Gary.
Sounds good. This is Gary Lipsky signing off. I'll be back next week with another informative episode on the Real Estate Investor Podcast.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you. To all of our listeners, thanks for joining us. And if you like this episode, please head over to iTunes or Stitcher and like, subscribe, and leave a review, as it will help us reach more people. And if you'd like to learn more about what we do at Break of Day Capital, head over to our website at breakofdaycapital.com and sign up for our newsletter and fill out our investor application. We'll talk to you next week.